Hello everyone. As promised, going to give you a AK47 Republic battle report, and I'm going to be using some of the figures that I painted up recently that I showed you, and the other faction is going to be entirely composed of my older figures. So I've got them laid out here in front of you. I've been trying to film this for over a week now, and the lighting conditions have been pretty bad, and today's the first good sunlight, and unfortunately I've had to be out most of the day. So I suspect what you'll notice is that the lighting conditions will change over the course of the battle report, and my clothing will change, because I'm probably going to have to do this in sections as the lighting allows, so it probably run over a couple of days, but other than the fact that you'll notice the lighting changing, hopefully it won't be too apparent to you. So I've laid out in front of you here, then I've got the figures that I'm going to use. In the back, just at the top of the screen, I've got everything that I'm not going to use, so I'll show you in a minute. So on the left hand side here is the superpower backed client force, and it's the superpower I've chosen is France. So there are a group of French Foreign Legion at the very front here. They are worth 242 points and consist of 10 bases and 2 bases of mortars. They're professional, and because they're professional, there's possibility in the rules that they might be able to call in an airstrike on a sort of random chance generator. So I've also got on the table here a model, die-cast model of a French Mirage fighter that I'll bring on if to represent the airstrike if that happens. Behind the Foreign Legion are 3 tanks. Excuse me. They are regular, and they are worth 180 points. These are 242, if I didn't say that a moment ago. Behind those are a militia group consisting of an armoured personnel carrier there, and an armoured car. The armoured personnel carrier can carry up to 4 bases of infantry, so there are 4 bases of militia just hiding under the airplane there as well. And then behind them are 2 identical groups, or units rather, consisting of 6 bases of regular infantry and 2 bases of rocket propelled grenades. Now all that comes to 655 points. If you're familiar with AK47, then you'll realise that this is more than the normal allowance. It's the way I like to play the game. The whole thing comes to 655 points. What you're supposed to do is go through quite a long preamble prior to the game of spending points rather, on political points, which then may or may not generate you additional units or allow you to add extra bits of armament or upgrade a unit, that kind of thing. It's one of the things that I've never bothered with AK47. I mean, they are a fantastic set of rules, but I've generally found that, especially if I've been playing someone else, just want to get our figures down on the table and play with them. So that's what I'm doing on this occasion. And also, I suppose I should say at this point that I'm using the very first edition of the rules rather than AK47 Reloaded. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that during the game, rather than hold the game up too long at this point. They again, I have got the rules. I first purchased them only this last year rather, when I saw them being played by Billy Goat Wargaming on his YouTube channel. They look good. But again, there's an awful lot of preamble, which is not, is not something that I'm really into with AK47. And the other problem with not problem, but the other thing with the rules is that it's very difficult sometimes to get units actually on the table. And it struck me watching his battle report that it was very hard. You had a large number of units in reserve that it was quite difficult to get on the table. So as I'm more familiar with the original rules anyway, and I just wanted to play a game with these fresh figures that I painted, I'm just going to stick to what I know for this report, and hope you enjoy it. Okay, so over here is a lot of stuff that I painted recently that I showed you in a recent video. At the very front, these are People's Popular Front, by the way. And again, as with this side, I haven't got the commander base on the table. There's no specific requirement to do that. So at the front here, I've got the unit of 4 small arms, 2 rocket-propelled grenade groups, 2 heavy machine gun groups, and 4 mortar groups. Now it looks like quite a small unit, but it is actually worth 240 points, so it's about an equivalent size to the French Foreign Legion. Behind them is the only group of militia in this faction, and they have, let me see, 9 small arms and 2 rocket-propelled grenades. So not particularly good quality troops, but can be quite a nuisance. Behind them, I have got 2 anti-aircraft guns with their tows. And I've had to sort of stiffen up this side, because everything that I had painted recently wasn't particularly heavy weaponry and so on. So from my old stuff, I've given them an armoured car, or 2 armoured cars. One has a tank gun and the other has a machine gun, heavy machine gun. And they are regular. Behind them, I've got 4 of the Toyotas that I painted up recently. They are regulars, and all 4 Toyotas have heavy machine guns mounted on them. They are worth 100 points. And right at the back, a single solitary tank, which is also from my old collection and is worth 60 points and is a regular tank. So that's what I'm playing with. I'll just take the camera off the tripod for a moment and show you what I've got in as surplus to requirements. Right, so this is everything that I haven't used from what I already had painted. You can see I've just got so much AK47 stuff, because I've still got bags and bags of unpainted stuff that's going back in the Lead Mountain now. But yeah, more French Foreign Legion, a few vehicles, Toyotas with RPGs, not RPGs, Recalus rifles, a couple of troop carriers, lots and lots of militia kind of standard troops, a couple more tanks down there. So that is all the old stuff that I had previously painted, and then on top of what I've just shown you that I'm going to be using, this is stuff that I painted recently that I'm not going to be able to use in this game. So you can see there's hundreds and hundreds of points in here, easily enough to make up another faction, except that it's very unbalanced towards a lot of infantry. The casualty markers will no doubt come in handy during this game, but none of this is going to get used. Okay, right, next up then, I'll show you the battlefield. Okay, so just a quick tour around the way I've set the table up. I'm using a playing surface of 6 foot by 5, which is probably a little bit big. Most of the games we used to play were on 6 foot by 4 table. But anyway, what I've done is to dot around a few of these sort of smaller pieces of terrain. Normally you would say that they were just there for scenic effect, but I'm actually going to call them templates, and which means that vehicles can't go into them. But you would normally have a template about this size. I just thought that would make it slightly more full, the table, and block the line of sight and so on, so it breaks the fighting up a little bit. Down the middle of the table, the long length of the table, there is a road. I'll go up that end in a moment. Up this end, apart from the jungle there's a sort of small settlement, bit of a sort of shanty town look to it, corrugated iron roofs and so on. Two of these buildings are Peter Pig, that one and that one, and these two I scratch built from bits of polyfoam and so on, and added a bit, a few model railway kind of accessories like a petrol pump and so on, but it serves as a template. Another small piece there, another small piece there. So on this side of the road you have a mission station and an adjacent cemetery, so that whole area is going to be one more template. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do when figures move into this. I have to perch them on the roof or something. Over the other side of the table is an area of swampland, and figures are going to be allowed into that, but not vehicles. And unlike all the other templates, you are going to be able to see over it. It will give cover to infantry in it, but firing tanks and heavier weapons and so on is going to be allowed across that. All the other pieces are high terrain, and that's not possible. Another small area there. Up this end of the table you have another template of jungle, and at the far end of the road here is a larger kind of town, more sort of solidly built, which features some of the buildings from Timecast that I was telling you about on the previous video. So this one is from their Vietnam range, and I just stuck a lot of corrugated iron over the roof to make it look a little less Asian, a bit more kind of African. That's the garage that I showed you on my previous video. That's also from Timecast, and two other Timecast buildings over this side, shops and bars and things like that. Again, that one I just stuck some corrugated plastic over it and painted up as metal, and I don't think I did anything with that one because it came with a possibility of a flat roof, so I just put a flat roof on it. There's the backs. Drilled a few holes into the board and stuck some palm trees in there to give it a kind of tropical look, and final small piece of terrain there. So that's the battlefield, and next up will be the game setup, which I'll go through. Okay, now normally the player who spent the most on political manoeuvre points would be deemed to be the attacker, but as I haven't gone through any of that, what I'm going to say is that the People's Popular Front faction is going to be the defender. The scenario I'm making up in my mind is that there's been a sort of communist-inspired insurrection in one region of the country. Maybe it's taken over an important area in terms of mineral wealth, and the government has gone to France to ask for some help in retaking the region. So that's the way I'm going to play it. And what you do next then is that the defending player will nominate 3 objective points on the table, and he will secretly designate either 10, 20 or 30 victory points to those each of those unit markers. Again, because that should be done without the attacking player's knowledge, what I'm going to do is I have 3 markers, and they're identical markers. They're all sort of ammunition markers like that. Underneath each one, I've written 10, 20 or 30, and I don't know which is which. I've muddled them up. And I'm going to place 1 on each of the areas that I'm going to mark as objectives. So one of them is going to be in the centre of the main town here. Another one is going to be on the road. If you have them all in templates, then it means that vehicles won't be able to get close to them. So it makes it hard for the defending player to defend them, as well as for the attacking player to take them. And the other one I'm going to put up in the shanty town up here. And then the next thing is that the defending player decides which side the attacking player is going to come on from. So I'm going to say he's coming on from this side here. So the attacking player will come on from here. And then after that, this is where, as I was saying, it's quite hard to get units on the table. Each player now has to roll to see which of his units he can bring onto the table in the first turn. Right, now we'll start with the attacking player, and for each of the units you roll a dice, and to get the first unit on the table, it's pretty easy. You have to roll anything other than a 1, so 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, and you're better off nominating a unit which has got the maximum number of points, so that it's easier to get the most points on it as you go. So I'm going to say we're going to roll for the French Foreign Legion first of all. So to get them on the table, I need anything other than a 1. 3. So they're on the table. Okay, now the next unit we're going to nominate as the group of 3 tanks, and they need anything other than a 1 or 2 now. They get a 4, so they're on as well. So the attackers got most of their main strength on the table. Okay, then the armoured car and the armoured personnel carrier with the 4 bases of militia. Now these need anything other than a 1, 2 or 3. They get a 5, so they're on as well. Okay, and then the next unit on, they're both the same, the next 2 units, so 6 bases of militia and 2 bases of RPG. And these are going to need 5 or 6. So they fail. So the next one as well will be 5 or 6. And they fail as well. So the attacking player has got 3 units on the table. His 3 best units, in fact. So that's pretty good rolling for him. So we're going to change the colour of the dice. So I'm going to be rolling red for the People's Popular Front. And the same thing again, only it's slightly harder for the defending player. His first unit comes on the table with anything other than a 1 or a 2. So again, we'll start with the highest value unit, which is the 4 bases of small arms, the 4 mortars, the 2 heavy machine guns and the 2 RPGs. And they roll a 6, so they're on straight away. Okay, so it goes down now to anything other than 1, 2 or 3 for the second unit, and we're going to say the next valued one is the group of militia with 9 bases of small arms and 2 RPG bases, and they fail. Okay, so now it's the same chance for the next value one, which is the 2 towed anti-aircraft guns and the 2 armoured cars, and they fail. Okay, so after that it's the 4 Toyota trucks. So again, it's the same chance, as I haven't succeeded, it's the same chance, anything 1, 2 or 3. 6, they're on. And then finally there's the single tank. Now he'll be coming on with any either a 5 or a 6. No. So the defending player hasn't done quite so well. It's always the case that it's harder for the defender to get units on the table. Okay, so here we are then with all the units that are allowed to enter the table on the table, and the defender puts his units down first. So I put the 4 Toyota trucks in a position up this end of the table here on the road, so because wheeled vehicles can travel faster on the road, so they're able to reach that objective if they need to, and they won't be allowed into this template, but they're in a position to kind of react to anything that enters it. The defending units can't put anything on that within 6 inches of an edge, whereas the attacking player has to put things on within 3 inches of his attacking side. So over here we've got the French Foreign Legion lined up, ready to attack the vacant shantytown at the moment, take that objective. In terms of unit cohesion, I mean, they're very tightly bunched here. You do take the risk of if one unit is hit with certain weapons, adjacent units can take collateral damage, and because they're a professional unit, they could actually have their groups 6 inches apart, be really spread out. But there's no need for that at the moment. There's no danger of them being hit at the moment. Likewise with the tanks. Now these are regular, so they can have their groups up to 4 inches apart, which is fine for them at the moment. But you can see there, if that middle tank was to be hit, then they would lose a certain amount of unit cohesion and have to take a morale test. So you have to keep them fairly close together. And then up the other end of the table, my thinking is to have the 2 armoured cars with the 4 bases of infantry in that, currently in that armoured car, and they're going to sort of approach the main town, which is very heavily defended by all these infantry with all kinds of heavy weapons, machine guns and mortars and so on. So it's a real stronghold this. It'd be really hard to get these guys out. But my thinking is, rather than make a sort of suicidal attack on it, I can bring the armoured cars up and just sort of take a few kind of test shots at these units and see what effect it has. They get the benefit of cover from being in a template, and they can't be seen if they're within 2 inches, outside of 2 inches, so within the interior. So that unit there, for instance, can't fire out nor be fired at, but all these units around the edge can fire out, so there's a real commanding field of fire here to that empty space in front of them, so it's going to be very difficult. So I think this attack here is just going to be a little bit tentative, just to sort of keep them engaged. Right, so now it's on to the first turn. Okay, so you do all movement first of all, alternating players, starting with the attacking player. So I am going to move these 2 armoured cars first of all, and wheeled vehicles move d6 times 2 inches. So we'll roll a dice for them. They get a 5, so they can move 10 inches. I don't know if you can see that. I think you can. And then the attacking player can nominate a unit not to move if he wishes. So I'm going to say that the unit in the town is going to remain stationary. So next up, the attacking player has to nominate another unit. Okay, so the attacking player is going to nominate the tanks, and like wheeled vehicles, they move d6 times 2. The advantage wheeled vehicles have is they can move faster on roads. So they're going to move d6 times 2, and they roll a 1, which means they can only move 2 inches. So not very successful. So I don't really think there's much point in the Toyotas moving at this time. They may as well stay there, which just leaves the French Foreign Legion to move. Now, infantry move slightly differently. They move d6 plus 2 inches, and certain types of weapons have to roll to see if they can move, such as a recoilless rifle, but I think mortars are okay. I'll just check that. Yeah, mortars are alright to move without having to roll to check that they can, but what they can't do is move and fire. So it's going to be d6 plus 2. Oh, hang on, I'm going to try and remain strict and use the correct colour. Oh, yeah, it was a 5 anyway. They need to roll. Sorry, I thought they were red dice. Right, okay, so they can move 7 inches. Okay, so they're approaching the shanty town now. I've kept them clustered together because this template here is a high object, so they can't be seen behind it by the Toyotas. And this little template here doesn't actually affect them. Infantry can move through it, and it only slows a unit down if they've got more than half their units in it, so it didn't cause them any problem. So now we're on to firing, if there is any. Okay, there isn't a great deal of firing as you'd expect in the first turn. This tank does have a line of sight on the, I guess, the lead Toyota there, but it's just out of range. Tank gun's range is 26 inches and he's 27, so just out of range. But over here, this armoured car does actually have line of sight on that mortar group there. And it's within 26 inches, so it can fire on that as it has a tank gun, and equally the mortar has a range of 30 inches, which makes it easily within reach of these two armoured cars. So I think it's going to fire at the armoured personnel carrier, try and eliminate that and the 4 bases that are within it. So we'll show you how firing works now. Okay, firing is simultaneous, so it doesn't matter what order you do it in. So we're going to start with the armoured car with the tank gun, and the firer rolls 2 dice and the defender rolls 1. Just go across to the dice tray here. Okay, so that's a big difference in number, because the firer has rolled 11 and the defender only 2, and you subtract 1 from the other, which gives you 9, and then you add various factors. So the firer is a tank gun, you add 2, so that takes it up to 11. The target is over half range, takes you down to 10. The firer is militia quality, I can't remember. I think he is. Yeah, militia quality, so that takes you down another 1 to 10. The target is in a templated area, takes you down to 9. The firer move this go takes you down to 8. But that's still sufficient to eliminate that mortar group. The only thing being that it's quite hard to eliminate infantry units at a distance like that. So even though I've actually got a hit, you can turn it into a pinned result. Yeah, you roll a 3, 4, 5 or 6 and the result becomes a pin. Let's just show you the dice tray again. No, so it's killed, only threw a 1, so he's destroyed. And then, as I was saying, certain weapons have collateral damage, but that doesn't include a tank gun. It's mortars, anti-aircraft and heavy machine guns. So we've already got 1 casualty there. But as I say, firing is simultaneous, so that mortar group can attempt to fire back at the armoured personnel carrier. So again, 2 dice against 1. 7 minus 1 is 6. And I don't think... Yeah, it goes down to 5 because it's over half range. And it's an armoured car, so it goes down to 4. So it's a miss. So as a result of the firing, all we have to do is replace that mortar unit with a casualty marker. Right, there we are, casualty marker, and I've just taken a measurement, and the next group along, the heavy machine gun, is actually out of range, so it can't open fire on anything. So that's the end of the firing turn. Right, now we're on to the morale phase. So any unit that's taken a hit or a pin has to roll for morale in this stage. So we'll take you down to dice tray. And the way you do this is you have to calculate the morale factor. Now they're militia, so that counts as 1. Oh no, I beg your pardon, they're regular. Yeah, they're regular, so that's fine. For each group pinned or destroyed this turn, that counts as 1. They're fired at by a tank or a tank gun, so that takes it up to 2. And for every dead marker, if every 3 dead markers or part thereof within 3 inches of any part of the unit, so that could include dead markers from another unit, if that was the case, so that goes up to 3. So that means their morale factor, oh hang on, more than half the unit is in the template, you take it down to 2. So that means their morale factor is 2, so they have to roll a d6 and beat 2. Effectively, which they fail to do. Okay, so every unit has 3 morale points, which means they've lost one of those immediately. Okay, now that's all the compulsory morale tests, but at the end of each turn you do take the opposing player can choose a unit to take an optional morale test. So obviously the attacking player is going to choose that same unit again. So they're going to make them roll again, possibly lose another morale point. So again, they've got to roll more than 2. And they pass it. So they've only lost 1 morale point. Now, in terms of the attacking player, the defending player can opt for one of their units to take a morale check, but because they've not had any casualties or anything like that, and all the units have got cohesion, they're only going to fail it on a 1. So the attacking player is going to nominate the 2 armoured cars which are causing them the problem, make them roll, and if they get a 1 they lose a morale point. No, they're fine. Okay. Now the other thing that happens at the end of each point is that the defender has to roll for the end game. Now there are 33 points. The defender rolls a d6 and you take off however many points that is, and when you get to 33 the game is over. So I'm going to take 4 points off that, so we're into turn 2. For the first turn or 2 I'll go through all the dice rolling, but I'll speed it up as we go along, otherwise it will take hours to complete the Batrep. So the attacking player chooses a unit to move or not move first of all, and it's clearly within the interests of this pair of armoured cars now to remain stationary, because the tank gun now outdistances anything in the town there that's got line of sight, because this edge of the template cuts off the view. Actually looking at it, there is, this one here is within sight of one of the mortars, 2 of the mortars in fact, so it is still vulnerable, but I don't think, I'm not going to move those and see if we can get the defending units morale right down so that they run off the table. That would obviously be the way to go with that. I might debus, I think what I'll do is debus the infantry that are in there, so that if they are hit, the infantry aren't destroyed. So it takes 5 inches of movement for a group to leave a vehicle. So movement wise they're entitled to d6 times 2 movement. So if they roll 1 or 2, the group won't be allowed to leave the vehicle, and they roll a 1, so the group is stuck in the vehicle for the time being. Now the attacker is just going to say that his units are remaining stationary for the moment. I can't bring any additional units on until at least turn 4 now, and up the other end the attacker wants to move both the tanks and the French Foreign Legion. Okay, so the French Foreign Legion move d6 plus 2, and they've rolled a 5, sorry it's just off camera. So they can move 7 inches. So as they haven't started in the template, it doesn't actually affect the distance they can move. From now on they'll have to take 3 inches off their move allowance. But that group is now within 3 inches of the objective marker. You don't have to worry too much about where you put them now. If they're within 2 inches of the other edge they'd be able to see out, but they're not. Put one on the roof there. And then the tanks can move d6 times 2. So they've moved to 5 as well, rolled a 5 as well. Hopefully you can see that. That means they can move 10 inches. So the attack is going quite well at the moment. They've already got the group in the town worried because they're sort of reducing their morale, and the attackers have taken another objective there in the shanty town. Now, in terms of firing, there is a little bit to do up this end here now. None of the French Foreign Legion are within 2 inches of that edge, so they can't fire on anything. But in terms of the armoured cars and, not armoured cars, Toyota pickups and tanks, there is sort of a view for various of them through this gap here. So I'm going to do a little bit of firing here now. Okay, so the tank on the right here has line of sight at the 3rd Toyota in line. So he's going to open fire first of all. Okay, so it's 7 minus 3. It's not likely to be anything. You need a 5 or 6 to do any damage. So it's 4 at the moment. Goes up to 6 because the fire is a tank. But it goes down 1 because the firer moved, and down another 1 because the target's over half range. So that's nothing. Then the 2 other tanks have line of sight at the 1st Toyota on the road. So the central tank is going to fire first. That's even less. That's 6 minus 4 is 2, so that's no effect. And then the final tank firing, 5 minus 3 is 2, so nothing there. Okay, now the HMGs on the back of the Toyotas have a range of 18 inches, so they both have line of sight and are within 18 inches of the middle tank there. So they're both going to fire with their machine guns onto the tank. I mean, it seems improbable, that's going to do any damage to a tank, but it can happen. These rules are a lot more chaotic and so on, and that it's meant to be a kind of messy, confused, fragile kind of situation where you can inflict damage with quite small weapons on a tank. So here we go then. First Toyota. 5 minus 2 is 3, and I don't think there are any pluses. In fact, there's a minus 2 for it being a tank, so that's not going to do any damage whatsoever. And the second Toyota, 9 minus 2, that's a bit more promising, that's a 7. You would get 1 for it being an HMG unless you're firing against the tank, so that's nothing. It's over half range, so it goes down to 6. And the target is a tank, so it goes down to 4. So that was very close. That was only out by 1, from pinning the tank, which would have meant that it wouldn't have been able to do anything the next turn. So now we're on to the firing over the other side of the table. Right, so the heavy machine guns are just out of range, but there is a mortar there that's within range of the armoured personnel carrier, and the tank gun is within range as well of the next group along on the roof there. So there's going to be a bit of firing here. I have just noticed that when I took the morale test for this unit here before, there is a factor. They should have rolled better than 2, but they did, because there is a factor for being fired at by mortars, and they were fired at by mortars, but they would have passed it anyway. So we'll start off with the armoured car's tank gun firing at the heavy machine gun on the roof. So definitely not going to be anything. 7 minus 6 is 1, so no effect there. And then the mortar rolling, firing back at the armoured personnel carrier. 11 minus 6, so that is 5. I doubt it, but we'll add it. I will just check in case. Over half range takes it down to 4. And its target as an armoured car takes it down to 3. So yeah, definitely nothing there. Now we're on to the morale phase, and there's no compulsory tests, as there was no damage done to either side during the firing. So it's just the optional nominated morale test, and it's always going to be to the benefit of the attacking player now to nominate that unit, even though they get a bonus for being in a templated area. There's always going to be that dead marker there now that's going to give them a bit of a problem. So the morale factor is that they are fired at by a tank gun, which is 1, and they have a dead marker there. So per 3 dead markers, so that's 2. And it goes down. Oh, actually, yeah, it goes down to 1 because they're in a templated area. So they've only got to roll better than 1. So we can do these quite quickly. Right. So this is the. Oh, they rolled a 1, so they've lost another morale point, so they've only got 1 left. And again, the optional roll for the other side, they're going to nominate the armoured cars again, and they rolled a 2. So they're... Oh, are they okay? Hang on. They're fired at by mortar is 1. Yeah, they're okay. So they pass. So that unit is now looking a little bit shaky. It's only got 1 morale point left. And we rolled to see how many points come off of the end turn. So we're going to take another 3 points off the end turn. So I was debating whether to move this unit back so that they're actually entirely within the template and can't be fired at. But they're still a bit flaky there, even so. So I think I'm going to leave them there so that they can carry on firing out at those armoured cars. So again, the armoured cars aren't going to move, so all the movement is going to be up the other end of the table. Right, now if I were to move the tanks, it would actually give them a bit of a problem. They do get a bonus, or rather they don't get a subtraction for not moving and firing. They will get a negative effect if they move and fire, and also there's only room for 1 tank at a time to move through this gap between the 2 templates here. So I think they're better off remaining stationary and then doing the same firing as they did last turn. So it's only going to be the French Foreign Legion who I want to move up to the edge of the template here so that they can begin to open fire on the Toyotas as well. They won't be able to use their mortars this turn because they can't move mortars and fire. But anyway, we'll see what they roll. They've rolled a 3. That's not good because they rolled D6. D6 plus 2 is 5, but then subtract 3 for being in a template, so they're only going to move 2 inches. So I've hardly moved them at all. I was just interested really in getting the 2 mortar bases, which is one there and one there, closer to the edge. So they're still a long way from the edge. And there's no point in moving the other groups up so that they're within visibility of the heavy machine guns, because they'll just get chewed up by the heavy machine guns. So that is all the end of movement. So now it's firing. So again, we've got the end tank there firing on the 3rd Toyota. Right, so that's 8 minus 2 is 6. So good start. The firer is a tank, so that takes it up to 8. Over half range takes it down to 7. So it's destroyed. First real damage of the game. Right, so the 3rd Toyota in line has been destroyed now, and it didn't have a... Did it? I don't think it did. No, it didn't have a target of its own, so I put a marker on that now to signify that's destroyed. And then the other 2 tanks are going to fire at the lead Toyota. So 5 down to 4. Over half range is 3. Plus 2 for being a tank takes it up to 5. Yeah, so they get a pin on the first Toyota, and then the second tank 2, so that won't be anything. So the 3rd one is destroyed. So I put the smoke on top to signify a pin. I'll put a little bit of smoke just underneath there, so you can see that it's only pinned. And the firing is simultaneous, so it can fire back. So the front 2 Toyotas have got line of sight on the middle tank, so they're both going to fire back. So first one, 9 minus 3 is 6, pretty good. Over half range takes it down to 5, and its tank takes it down to 3, so not good enough. Target is a tank. Second one, 7 minus 4, that's even worse, so no results there. Right, so same exchange of fire here, so we're going to begin with the tank gun on the armoured car firing at the heavy machine gun on the corner there. Right, 6 minus 5 is 1, so I'm not even going to bother to... Not even going to bother calculate that, I'm sure that's a miss. And then the mortar firing back at the armoured personnel carrier. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't roll to see if the group can get out of the armoured car in the last go, did I? So I'm just going to do that now. So it's D6 times 2. No, again, they can't, because they've got movement of 2 and they need 5 to get out of the car. Right, so they are still in danger of being destroyed by the mortar. Okay, right, here we go then. Mortar firing back at the armoured personnel carrier. 11 minus 6 is 5. Over half range takes it down to 4. And I think that is it. Yeah, that is it. So close, but no cigar. Right, we're on to morale now, and the only compulsory morale test will be on the unit of pickups, because they've taken some damage this turn. So the compulsory morale test says that they, for each group pinned or destroyed, +1. So one group was pinned and another destroyed, so that becomes 2. They are fired at by tanks, so that goes up to 3. And then they have 1 dead marker, is 4. And that's it. So they've got to get 5 or 6 in order to pass the morale. Let's see if I can put it there. You can see that, I think. Right, they get a 2, so they lose. And then obviously going to make that the compulsory test as well. 4, so they have lost 2 points off of their morale. And then I won't move the camera, but I'm going to roll as an optional one, nominated one, the armoured cars up the other end of the table for the attacking player. So they are fired at by mortars is 1, and that's it. So they've just got to beat 1. And they do. So that's the end of the morale phase. So defending player rolls to see how many points come off the end game. Another 3 points off of that. And now we're into turn 4, so we can begin to dice and see if any other units come on the table. Right, so again, it's harder for the defending player to get units on the table. From now on though, each unit has to roll a 6 in order to be able to come on the table. So at the moment they have the Toyotas and the group with all the mortars and so on in the town on the table. So I'm going to start with the tank. They need to roll a 6 to be able to bring it on. No. And then the anti-aircraft guns and their armoured cars. Another 1. Hopefully you can see that. And then the militia group with the small arms and RPGs. No. Now, the attacking player has got 3 groups on the table at the moment, but it hasn't got either of these 2 militia groups, and they're both identical. 6 bases of small arms and 2 bases of RPGs. And they can get them on with a roll of a 5 or a 6. So the first one is a 4, and the second one is a 6. So they can bring another group onto the table. They're allowed to put it onto any corner they like, within 6 inches of the corner, but it won't be. It's just there for the first for the 4th turn. It can only start to actually come into action in the turn after, and that gives the other player a chance to react to their presence. Right, here we are then. So this is that additional group of attackers, and as I say, they're on in this corner here, and they can't do anything this turn. But they're within they're within striking distance of this town. Attack them from behind. So now it's on to the turn 4. Right, now to speed it up a little bit. From now on, I won't show you the dice rolls for movement, but obviously we're into the movement phase now, so What I'm going to do is just try and move these mortar groups in the French Foreign Legion up to the edge of the template. It's probably time for these Toyotas to move and go somewhere where they're less vulnerable. That lead Toyota is pinned at the moment, so it won't be able to move this turn, but I can get the other two around it, off the road, so they won't be moving so fast, and try and get them moving in this direction here. And I'll move the tanks up now, as they seem to have gained the initiative, and over here just try and get those guys out, the militia out the back of that carrier there. So the result of movement was that the Toyotas didn't move very far at all. Not that they would have wanted to get too far away from that lead vehicle, otherwise they would have lost cohesion. But the tanks moved spectacularly, and they're actually now cutting them off if they intend to head that way towards the objective. So the tanks are close to capturing that objective marker there. The French Foreign Legion was only trying to move the mortar groups, and they only managed to move an inch. So there's one there and another one there, so they're still not within 2 inches of the edge of the template, but at least they've seized the objective. And a bit more success over here, in that the militia managed to debus. So what you do for the first move is you form a kind of snake beside the vehicle, and in the next move they'll be able to move. So might get them to take cover in the jungle or something like that. We'll see. So now on to firing. Right, same procedure over here then. So the armoured car is going to fire at the heavy machine gun group there. Nine, oh, that's a good one. 9 minus 1 is 8. That's almost certainly a kill, but because it's outside of 10 inches, they might be able to convert it to a pin. Right, so we've got to start off with 8. Fire as a tank goes up to 10. Over half range goes down to 9. Militia quality goes down to 8. So it's an 8, so it will be a kill unless the defender can actually convert it. So on a 3, 4, 5 or 6 it's converted to a pin. No, it's another kill. They're really unlucky in this respect. Right, okay, so they're not going to be able to fire back, so I'll change that over now. Right, so the reason they can't fire back isn't because they're not allowed to, it's because they're out of range, in case that's confusing. So there we go, another dead marker there, and now this mortar group is going to fire back, still going to try and aim at the armoured personnel carrier. Nine minus 3 is 6, and I'm not sure, I don't think that's going to do anything, because there's too many deductions. Over half range takes it down to 5, and it's an armoured car, takes it down to 4, so once again just unlucky there. So the defending side is in a little bit of trouble. And up this end of the table, there are 2 tanks here that are both able to see. I know it doesn't look like it from the camera angle, but that tank there does have line of sight on this Toyota. So there are two tanks able to fire on this Toyota, and these two Toyotas are both within range 18 inches for heavy machine guns of that front tank. So there's a bit of to and forth with firing over this side. So we'll start with the two tanks firing on the front Toyota. So the first one, 8 minus 5, doubt it. They get +2 for being a tank. So this 8 minus 5 is 3, that goes up to 5 then. They move, this goes down to 4, so that won't be anything. And then the second tank, 8 minus 2, so that's 6, might get a pin. Goes up to 8 for being a tank. Over half range as well. Yeah, over half range, so 8 down to 7, down to 6 for having moved. Yeah, right, okay, let's do this again because I think there's a kill here. Right, so they've got 6 there, +2 for being a tank is 8. Over half range is 7. Move this guy is 6. Yeah, so they get a kill. Oh dear, not good for the defenders. And then the Toyota's firing back at the lead tank. First one, right, now that is the first double 3 of the game, and unfortunately it generates a random effect, but not good for the defending player. And 1 to 3 are bad, and 4 to 6 are good. So let's work out the result of the firing first of all. So there's a difference of 3. Fire is an HMG unless firing at a tank. Over half range, so it goes down to 2. Move this guy goes down to 1. Yeah, so it's nil result. And then we'll just do the other firing before I work out the random effect. 11 minus 4 is 7. Over half range it goes down to 6. Move this guy goes down to 5. Target is a tank, goes down to 3, so nothing. Right, I'll just work out the random effect. A double 3 is the worst possible result for these Toyotas because it only involves vehicles, and it's a vehicle breakdown caused by overwork or small arms fire stroke shrapnel. So you dice for each vehicle in the unit, and on a 6 the vehicle cannot move anymore, and only professional quality troops can restart a vehicle, and they're not professional. So here we go then. So there are 3 vehicles left. One of them's pinned, but that pin is about to come off at the moment. So we'll start with vehicle number 1. No, it's okay. Vehicle number 2, that's okay. And vehicle number 3, that's alright as well, so they got away with it. So they're going to be alright for next go. Now we're on to the morale phase, and the only compulsory morale test is going to be on this unit here, because they took another kill this go. And they've only got 1 morale point left, remember, so they could be in trouble if they lose it. So let's roll, see what we get. Okay, so their morale factor will be 1, because they had a group destroyed this turn. They are fired by a tank gun, so that's 2. Any gaps of regular, I think, so 4 inches, so they're all right with that. 1 per 3 dead markers, so they now have 2 dead markers, so that's still +1, so that's 3. And they're in the template, so that goes down to 2. So anything but a 1 or 2 and they'll be okay. They're okay, but the attacking player is going to make that the optional nominated morale test as well, and they survive, so they're okay. Now, in terms of the nominated morale tests for the attackers, I think we'll do those armoured cars again. So they're fired at by mortars, which is 1, and that's it, so they've just got to beat a 1. And they do. Right, so that's the morale test over. And then see how many points come off the end score. So we're going to take another 6 off, so that's getting it a lot closer to the end of the game. I think it's on 16 now, so we're about halfway through the game. And then we roll to see which other units can come on the table at the beginning of turn 5. Right, I'll do it just reading you out the units that I'm rolling for. So rolling for the defending player first of all, and we're going to try and get the tank on, and it needs a 6. No. And then we're going to try and get the towed anti-aircraft guns and the 2 armoured cars on, again needing a 6. No. And the group of militia with small arms and rocket propelled grenades needing a 6. No. So unlucky for the defenders, but this game can turn around so quickly. That's one of the things I really like about it. It's not realistic in terms of, you know, effects of weapons and ranges and so on, but it's just so good at generating random effects and sudden changes of fortune. Anyway, so we've only got 1 unit left to come on for the attackers, which is another group of militia, 6 bases of small arms and 2 rocket propelled grenades, and they can come on with a 5 or a 6. And they come on. Wow. So again, they can come onto any corner. We'll see what we do about that. They're coming on in this corner here. My thought being that they can move into this position and take over holding that objective, and that will free the French Foreign Legion up to move further onto the table. So they're the professional troops on the table, so they can be of more use in the fighting than just holding on to a position there. And so right, in this next turn I'm going to do the same again then. Roll all the moves off camera, move the figures, and then show you the firing. So the French Foreign Legion having a real trouble getting through this mess of a shanty town, and they only moved another inch again. This group in the corner here still can't move, but over here the Toyotas got they got 12-inch movement, so I've decided, because these tanks have now moved up to completely block them off from the objective, they're going to do a sort of banzai charge just to get within close range, so that their heavy machine guns are a little bit more effective against these tanks. It might be suicidal, or else they might get a few hits or pins on them. And over here, the infantry that had debussed earlier are now just moved into the template. So I think that means if they do take a morale check, because there are 4 groups in the template and only 2 outside, it will give them a benefit in terms of morale. And this other group that came on last turn can now move, so they are approaching the other side of the town to threaten this beleaguered group from the other side. So firing next. Okay, so I made an error here and I'm not going to allow myself to correct it. Be strict on myself in that I should have moved this armoured car slightly forward now, because it's no longer got line of sight on the next group along that mortar. The edge of the template cuts off its line of vision, and this armoured personnel character can see the mortar group, but it can't fire at them because it's out of range. So that means that the only firing here is going to be from the mortar, which is in range of that armoured personnel carrier. So a bit of an error there, but be strict on myself. So this is the mortar firing at the armoured personnel carrier. Okay, so that is 10 minus 6 is 4 at the table. Don't think that's going to be anything, but I'll go through it again. Over half range goes down to 3. And armoured car goes down to 2, so that's nothing. Right, so next up we have this interchange between the Toyota pickups and the tanks. It looks very one-sided, but as I say, you never know what's going to happen in these rules, so let's roll the dice and play this firing. So we'll start with the tanks, and the tank at the end, the far end, is going to fire at this Toyota, and that's well within half range. Double 4, so that's yeah, that's going to be a result. I know what it is, and it's not going to have any effect, unfortunately. That's going to be a random event, is what I meant. Right, so 8 minus 1 is 7. Firer is a tank, goes up to 9. Moved this go. They didn't move this go. So that's another destroyed vehicle in a moment. And the next tank in line is going to fire at the adjacent pickup. Double 1. Now that's another random event, but you only take the first one for each unit. You can only generate one unit, can only generate one random effect per turn. So I'm going to have to go with the first one. You can't pick and choose, which is double 4. I'll tell you what it is in a moment. So it's a difference of 2, unlikely to be anything. Goes up to 4 because the fire is a tank. Yeah, so nothing. And then the third tank, seven minus 5, so that's going to be nothing again. Right, now the destroyed Toyota can still fire this go. Firing is simultaneous, so it's firing at the lead tank. Right, double 6 is going to be a random event as well. So again, we'll look those up in a moment. Right, that's 12 minus 4 is 8. Fire remove this go is 7. Target is a tank, goes down to 5. So they have, you see, it has pinned that front tank. Okay, second Toyota is going to fire at the middle tank. Nothing. 3 minus 3, that's not going to be anything. And the final Toyota is going to fire at the final tank. 9 minus 3 is 6. Move this go, takes it down to 5. Target is a tank, takes it down to 3. Right, so now I'll just explain those random effects. So the double 4 can only be used by professional troops, and the tanks aren't professional, they're regular. But had they been professional, they would have been able to call in an artillery or air support. So rather like that double 3, which is a vehicle breakdown that won't apply to units that don't have any vehicles in them, there's one random effect that isn't useful to all sides, and there's one random effect that isn't. There's one bad random effect and one good random effect that aren't, always of use. But the double 6, which the Toyotas rode, rows, is extra determination, which is a +2 to the firing dice total next turn for all groups in the unit. So over there you can see there are still 2 Toyotas. One has been destroyed now, but those other 2 are going to get a +2 to their dice rolls when firing at the tanks. And that group has already managed to pin that front tank. There's a bit of smoke underneath its base. There's a possibility there that they might get a hit next go. Now we're on to the morale stage, and there are 2 compulsory morale tests to be made there, one on each side, because the tanks took a pin and the Toyotas took a destroyed vehicle. And in both cases I'm going to make the optional test, those 2 morale tests as well. So we'll start with the attacking tanks, and their morale factor will be each group pinned or destroyed this turn. So they've had a group pinned, which is 1. And that's it, so they've only got to beat a 1. First roll 3, they've done it, and then the optional one 5, so they've got away with that. Now the Toyota's not quite so good. Each group pinned or destroyed this turn is 1, fired at by a tank is 2. They're alright in terms of cohesion, but they have got a dead marker, so that's 3. And that's it, so they've got to get 4, 5 or 6. They fail, and then the optional one they pass, so they have lost 1. Oh right, they have lost 1, but they already had lost 2, so they are now going to come off the table. They come off straight away, so they're not going to be able to make use of that extra determination. And while I got the dice tray in front of the camera, I roll to see how many endpoints come off. Another 2, that's pretty good. So we don't want the game to be over too quickly, so we need to get some defenders units on the table to rescue the situation. Now it's the start of the next turn, so the attacking player's got all their units on the table, but the defending player needs to get some more on, so rolling for the tank first of all, needs a 6. No. The anti-aircraft guns, no. And the unit of militia, no. So there's 1 defending unit on the table at the moment, surrounded by enemies on all sides. Right, so again I won't show you the moves, but all I'm intending to do now is to move the French Foreign Legion out towards the centre of the table. I can start to move that unit in the corner over here towards the shantytown, and I'm going to move the other unit in the other corner towards the town, and that'll be it. Okay, well the Foreign Legion moved really rapidly that turn, so they're mainly out of the template now, so it won't affect their movement in the next turn, so they're going quite fast. This group moves slowly, but all it needs to do really for the entire game is just move into there, so serving its purpose. The tanks remain stationary. One of them couldn't move anyway because it was pinned, and it won't be able to fire this turn, not that it's got a target. And over here I remembered to move the armoured car up. It only got 2-inch move, but that's all it needs to now be in sight of that next group. And from the back of the city here, this other group of militia are virtually on the outskirts of town now. There's 1 defending unit with 1 morale point left. I'm not quite sure what happens if all the units disappear from the table. I think you still carry on till the end of the, just rolling dice till the end of the game in the hope that another unit's going to come on, but I'll look that up. So firing next, so we may as well start up this end. Okay, so we're going to play it so that the armoured car and the mortar exchange fire. It keeps it a bit simpler. I think this... Oh, actually mortars can fire over intervening groups as long as they're not within a certain distance. But anyway, we'll do it that way. Right, so the armoured car first of all. Right, let's get my table. 7 minus 3 is 4. I think that won't be anything. Fire as a tank take... No, it's not. Armoured car gun, so it goes up to 6. Over half range still down to 5. Templated area for the target down to 4. And it moves down to 3, so nothing. Right, so now the mortar fire coming back. 8 minus 5 is 3, so can be pretty sure, because the target is an armoured car, take it down to 2, so nothing. Right, and that is actually the only firing, isn't it? Because there's no other targets on the table. I suppose in theory, hang on, I'll just do a quick bit of measurement. So I think in theory, that front tank there can't fire because it's pinned, but the other tank might be within range of some figures that you can't see on the other side of the template there. So I'll just measure that. Yeah, he is. So let's roll for that. May as well keep the pressure up on the defenders. Sorry, roll it so it's in the dice tray. Right, 9 minus 3 is 6. Fire as a tank goes up to 8. Over half range goes down to 7. Templated area goes down to 6. So it's a kill, yeah, right. So, because it's over 10 inches and it's an infantry group, they can try and convert it to a pin, and they don't. 1 or 2 and it's a kill, so there's another kill there. Right, so this is the unit that the tank was firing at, so that comes off. We replace it with a dead marker, and there's no collateral damage from a tank gun, so that is the end of the firing. But now the obvious thing to do is to test morale, and that makes it a compulsory morale test for the defenders. So we do that in front of the camera down here. And remember, they've only got 1 morale point left, so each group pinned or destroyed this turn. So they have 1 group destroyed is 1. Fired at by a tank is 2. There are no gaps. 1 per 3 dead markers, so they now have 3 dead markers in that unit. So that's 3. So we've got to beat... Oh, hang on. More than half the unit in the template, so that's 2. So anything but a 1 or 2. Yeah, they're okay, but again, going to make that the optional roll, and they pass it, so they're saved. And then in terms of the other units, there's absolutely no need for anyone to take a roll, so the optional roll, I might as well make something something vital, I suppose. No, I'll make it the tanks. So we're going to roll single dice. I'm going to do it with the red dice because I can't reach the white ones. Anything but a 1. 6, so they're fine. Okay, so that's the end of another turn. So the defender rolls to see how many points come off the end score. Another 3. That's good, that's what we want really, to keep the game going as long as possible in the hope that reinforcements arrive. And then on that subject, it's the start of the next turn, so we can roll to see for reinforcements. So the tank, first of all, needs a 6. Oops. Oh, it was a 6 as well, but I'm going to do it in the tray. 5. No. Oh, so annoying when you do that, isn't it? Right, then the anti-aircraft guns. 3. And the militia. 6. Right, so we can bring the militia on, and they come onto any table edge in the centre, whereas the attacker comes on at the corners. So just decide where to put them. Okay, so I put them up the town end. They won't be able to move this go. Got to wait a turn, but they have got a couple of RPGs, which might do something about these armoured cars here. And equally, they might be able to bring some small arms fire onto this group here, so we'll see how we go. But anyway, same again, gonna do the moves then show you the firing. Right, now the attacking militia group is now in the town, which means that a firefight can occur between them and the defenders. The way I always play this is to give them the cover of the template, but to assume that they can now see and be seen within the template, even if they're, you know, sort of 2 inches in. So we're going to have a few defenders here who are going to turn around. Sorry, some up the end there that you can't see. There and there. What are they? Mortar, machine gun. Unfortunately, the machine gun's in the wrong place to be able to see. It's blocked. But you don't have to assume they've got a 360-degree firing arc. So that mortar is going to carry on firing at the armoured car, but this one's going to be blocked as well. Yeah, so we'll call it just those. Now, it gets a bit kind of convoluted because each group fires individually, so I'm just going to work out what the factor is here and then sort of roll off camera rather than keep turning. So I'm turning the camera around. So I'm going to say that all of the ranges are over 5 inches, so it's over half. Small arms range is 10 inches, so I'm going to say it's over 5, so they get -1 for that. And these firers are militia, so when they fire they get -2. And then it's -1 for being in a templated area, so it's now -2 for them, -3 for them. And these firers move this go. Oh, right. So -2, -4. Yeah, right. -2, -4. Okay. So we'll start off with the defenders. Well, it's meant to do the attackers first, not that it matters. Let's do the attackers first then. I'll just tell you the results. So this group firing at that group. 7 -3 is 4, -4 is 0. That group firing at this group. 11, 10, -4 is 6. And there's no deduction or anything like that, because they're firing within 10 inches, so they get a kill for that straight away. Excuse me a minute, I'm just going to get a marker in case I forget. Well, I'll just put that there and remember that it can fire back this guy. So that was, I think that was that one. Blimey, can't remember now. Alright, I'll let that one fire at that one. Double 2, so it's going to be a negative effect on them. And a 6, so that is 2 minus 4, so that's nothing. And I remember the double 2. That one there, firing against that one there. 10 minus 6 is 4, minus 4 is nothing. That one there against that one there. 6 minus 2 is 4, minus 4 is nothing. That's all they're firing, so now we're fired back, so now it's minus 2. Four minus 2 is 2, minus 2 is nothing. That was for that one. This one here. 8 minus 2 is 6, minus 2 is 4, so that's no effect. This one here. 9 minus 4 is 5, minus 2 is 3, so no effect. And then the next one along, double 1, right, so that's a double 1 on there. So there's double 2 to remember there, double 1 there. So it's 2 minus 1 is 1, so it's not going to be anything. And then you've got the this mortar here that has a minimum range of 8 inches. So it's still going to be able to fire at something. Yeah, it's going to... that guy there, that group there is outside of 8 inches. So... it's not over half range, but the target is in a templated area, so it's only minus 1 to this. So 6 minus 4 is 2, minus 1, so nothing. Right, now the random effects, double 2, which is what this side rolled, is caution and confusion within the unit, minus 2 from all movement dice next turn. And this one here is double 1, which is an ammunition problem within the unit. All groups minus 2 on firing total dice next turn. So as I say, 1, 2 and 3 are bad. Oh, and what I haven't done is fire this mortar at the armoured car and exchange fire that way. So we'll do that next. Right, so the mortar is going to fire at the armoured car. Uh, 11 minus 6 is 5. Don't think that'll be anything. Over half range takes it down to 4. And armoured car takes it down to 3. No, so it's nothing. And the armoured car fires back. Double 3, so they get a random effect as well. And again, it's going to be that vehicle breakdown. So fire is an anti... what's the difference there? There's only 4 difference. Fire is an anti-armoured car gun. So that's plus 2, so that takes it up to 6, 4, 6, doesn't it? Yeah, 6. Over half range takes it down to 5. Templated takes it down to 4. So no effect, but we've got the random effects to put on now. Right, so over in the town, you just put little tokens on the units to remind you that next turn they're going to be affected, 1 in their movement, 1 in their firing. But in terms of the vehicle breakdown, we can roll for that now. So each vehicle we roll a d6, and on a 6 it breaks down and can't move for the rest of the game. And not being professional, they can't fix it. Right, okay, so the armoured car first of all. it breaks down and cannot move for the rest of the game. And then the armoured personnel carrier, 5, so they got away with it. Right, so I have to remember that the armoured car cannot move any longer. Well, it's some compensation to the defenders. Okay, so morale checks next. So over here there's a compulsory morale check on the defenders. So their morale factor is for each group pinned or destroyed this turn. So they had one group destroyed, is 1. They're fired at by an an armoured car gun from the other side, so that's 2. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 dead markers now, so that's another 2 this time, because it's more than 3. So that takes it up to 4. And they're in a template, takes it down to 3. So they need a 4, 5 or 6 to pass the morale test, and they've only got 1 morale point left. Right, they fail it. So they're going to be off the table. Now, in terms of the optional test, I don't think the attacker is allowed to nominate the other unit, because technically it isn't in the game yet. So they can't opt for that. And from the point of view of the defender nominating a unit, don't think there's anything that has to take a test. So I'm going to nominate again the attacking unit of militia over there, because I think militia are more likely to fail a morale test. Yeah, right, so 1 for being a militia. They have been fired at by a mortar, so that is 2. They haven't got any dead markers and they're in a template, so it takes it down to 1 again. So they've got to get anything other than a 1, which they do. Right, so in a moment I'll take that unit off the table, but as it's the end of the turn, we roll to see how many points come off. Only 1, which is good. I want to keep it low. And then we roll to see what else can come on. It's beginning of the next turn now. So the tank needs a 6, no, and the anti-aircraft gun needs a 6, and he got a 5 again. Right, okay, so I'll rearrange all that. It's pretty desperate for the defenders, but all is not yet lost, because this unit of militia can now move up this end here. The enemy militia that is now within 3 inches of the objective is confused, so it's got -2 on its dice roll next turn. So I'm going to move this unit as close as they can and literally get into hand-to-hand fighting with these guys. See who comes out on top. And I'm going to now ignore the threat from this unit here, because the armoured car can no longer move, which does kind of tie down with the rest of the group in a way. Because I think, if I remember, the militia quality, so they need to keep a 2-inch gap. I'm going to say that's 2 inches, it might be stretching it a bit, between all the units. So these other groups cannot move more than 2 inches away from this without beginning to affect their own morale. So I think they have been definitely stymied for the moment. And then, so we're going to play that out. That's going to be the defender's strategy, because it's going to take a while. Those tanks are going to remain there in order to hold that objective, and it is going to be a while before the Foreign Legion get into action and this group here is not going to go any further than that objective marker. I think, I don't remember if I told you, but I was making a slight mistake earlier on in that these Foreign Legion are professional troops, so they do get an inch extra movement each turn. So I think there were a couple of occasions when they could have moved an inch further than they actually did. But I don't think it's going to affect the outcome of the game too much. So other than burning cars which you leave on the table and dead bodies, because any friendly unit that comes close to them is affected, so it's going to have an effect on the morale of that unit there. But anyway, so I'll do the movement again and then let you know the outcome. Right, well, the militia, the attacking militia that's in the town, didn't move at all because they had such terrible dice roll and that -2 on their movement anyway. The defending militia didn't quite get into contact with them. So now there's going to be some firing, some from the attacking armoured car and armoured personnel carrier, which is just off camera, and then a lot of interchange of fire between these two groups here. So we'll start with the armoured car with the tank gun, firing on that nearest unit there. It's only broken down, it is still allowed to fire its gun. Right, 6 -4, don't think that'll be anything. Yeah, I'm pretty glass. Anyway, 6 -4 is 2. +2 for being an armoured car gun is 4. Nothing else to add, so no. And then the armoured personnel carrier is firing its heavy machine gun. 3 -1, that's 2 as well, so it's not going to be anything. Right, now the nitty gritty of all this small arms fire. So there's not actually going to be as much as I thought, because most of these groups are within 2 inches into the template, so they can't be seen or far out. So it's really only these 3 groups I'm going to allow firing at these 3 groups here, and then the other groups, I think, I'm not sure if they block live vision. We'll do it that way anyway, it makes it simpler. So 3 groups against 3 groups. One of those groups is an RPG. So with RPGs, they actually have to roll to make sure they can fire in the first place. Let's just look it up. Yeah, they do. They need to roll a 3, 4, 5 or 6 to make sure they can fire. So let's just move the camera over the dice tray and I'll just show you the dice rolls. So first of all, the attacker's firing. So there's going to be 3 rolls. First of all, we make sure that the RPG can fire. It can't, so there's only going to be 2 rolls. First roll, 3 -3. I think that definitely say that's not going to be anything. And the second roll, 10 -6 is 4. No additional, so there's nothing. Right, then the 3 groups firing back. First one, 5 -3 is 2, that won't be anything. Second one, 3 -4 is 1. And the third one, this could be a kill. 10 -1 is 9. Militia quality takes it down to 8. Targets in the templated area takes it down to 7. Fire and move this guy takes it down to 6. But it's still a kill. So I think that is first proper casualty that the defenders have inflicted on the attackers. Right, so it was actually this group here. So they get replaced with a casualty marker. And there will now be, there's no more firing, so there will now be some morale checks. So there's one compulsory morale check, which is the attacking militia in the town, because they've taken a casualty. Right, so they are militia quality, that makes them 1. They've had a group destroyed, that makes them 2. They have 1 dead marker, that makes them 3. And they're in a template, takes them back down to 2. So they have to beat 2. They do. But the optional nominated morale check is going to be them as well. And they pass it again. And then there's only 1 defending unit on the table, so it's going to have to be them taking a nominated morale check. So they too are militia qualities, 1. They don't have any groups destroyed or pinned this turn, but they have been fired at by an armoured car gun, so that's 2. And there are no friendly dead markers within 3 inches of them, so they have to pass 2 as well. And they don't. And then the nominated roll for them, they do. So they've hardly been on the board and they've lost 1 morale point already. Right, so that's the end of the turn. So we rolled again to see how many points further on towards the end game we are. Another 3. So that takes us up to 25, and we've got to go each 33 before the game is over. So we're slowly getting there. And then it's the beginning of the next turn, so we roll to see if either of the other 2 defenders' units come on. So the tank, first of all, needing a 6. No. And the anti-aircraft guns. No. Right, so on to the next turn. Okay, just made the moves for the next turn. So these 2 groups are now in combat with one another, these 2 units rather. So there are a number of groups that have got into base-to-base contact. When that happens, you can have a supporting base behind, adding to the fight. In fact, that one there would have been allowed to do that. And that one there, I think that would have been allowed. And not much else to report up the other end. The Foreign Legion are moving up gradually, and this group here moving very slowly, but they are now within 3 inches of that objective, so they've done their job really. So it's resolving the firing and conflict now, in terms of which these 2 vehicles will be able to fire. They're not allowed to fire at the groups that are in close assault, but they will be able to fire at the back of those units there. Okay, so we'll start with the slightly easier bit of the firing. So the armoured personnel carrier here is going to fire at that group there. It's just within 18 inches, so just within range. Double 2, so a bad random event for this group next turn. 4 minus 3 is 1, so it's not going to be anything. And then the armoured car is going to fire at the same group. 7 minus 2 is 5, that could be something. Firer is an armoured car gun, takes it up to 7. Over half range, takes it down to 6. Yep, so that's a kill. And because that group isn't actually involved in the firing, we'll put a marker on that straight away. Okay, so there's the dead marker. Now we've got to resolve this firing over here. So there are several close quarter combats, which is firing. It's deemed to be firing at very close quarters. But there's also, it's possible for firing to take place between these two units here. Just off camera with one of them. And they are inside 5 inches. So we'll do that one first of all. So the attacking, I'll read out what the dice rolls are rather than keep moving the camera. So it's 6 against 2, which is down to 4. And the firer is militia quality, so down to 3, and the target's in a templated area, so it's not going to be anything. And then that group firing back. 7 minus 2 is 5. Again, it's militia quality 4, templated area, so nothing. Right, now we've got the close quarter fighting, so we'll start with the attacking player. So each one of these has got, on both sides, has got support basically, so it's 2 rolls for each one. So we're going to start with this fight here, and let's just work out what we need to get, and then we can do it more quickly. So infantry with small arms in close assault against other groups on foot, +1. Militia quality be back to 0. I don't know whether if you get templated area, I'm not going to give templated area for that. And the firer move this go will be the case for some but not all. So if there is a -1, I'll say. So the first one, the was assaulted, so he didn't move, so it'll be 0. 5 minus 4 is 1, no. And the second one there, same. 8 minus 6 is 2, no. Now behind he did move, so take off 1. 6 minus 3 minus 1 is 2, no. And the same again. 6 minus 4, no, really bad rolls for the attacker. Right, now we're going to do the defender. So all of them moved up, so they'll all be -1. So there's going to be 4 rolls. 8 minus 6, no. 6 minus 5, no. 5 minus 5, no. Terrible rolling. And 4 minus 3, no. So absolutely no results from the close quarters there. So -2 in terms of the random effect for the other unit will be caution, confusion, -2 from movement. So that's not really going to be an issue for them, but I'll put the marker on anyway. Right, now this group here took a casualty, so they do have to take a compulsory morale check. So the militia quality, which is 1, they had a group destroyed this turn, which is 2. They've been fired at by an armoured car gun, which is 3, and they have a dead marker now, which is 4. So they have to get 5 or 6. No, they lose a morale point, and obviously they're going to be the chosen nominated morale check as well. And there's another one, so they've lost 2 morale points. Oh dear, yeah, they were already down 1, so that means they're coming off the table. So there are now no attacking units on the table. This is really one-sided game, I'm afraid. Not as exciting as it can be. Right, so I'm just going to do a morale check I think it's immaterial who I do, because they're all going to be on a 1, so I'm going to choose the armoured cars for the offensive player, attacking player. Anything but a 1. Yeah, they do it, so they're passed. So that's the end of the turn, so we roll to see how many points down we go. 6, oh, that's not what the defender wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we're up to 31 now. So there's only 2 more to go, so we're very nearly at the end of the game. And we roll to see if either the tank comes on, needing a 6. No. Or the anti-aircraft guns, needing a 6. No. No, hang on, let's do that in there. 2. Well, yeah, so I think I'll do a little bit of movement, but the game is virtually over now. Back to you in a second. So the militia, within 3 inches of that objective marker. The tanks within 3 inches of that. The Foreign Legion still moving across the table. And the other militia unit over here were able to move well within 3 inches of that objective marker. So I'm just going to show you a few dice rolls now. Unless we roll a 1, the game is going to be over now. Alright, so there are 2 endpoints left. So unless we roll a 1, the game is now over. It's a 3, so the game is over. So all we've got to do now is work out the victory points, which are going to be pretty staggeringly high for the offensive. Okay, so just go through this. It is the defender does score more at the end, but this is such an overwhelming victory that it's not going to make a lot of difference. So first of all, the attacker rolls 3d6, and you take that score, which isn't that good, 4. And then to this you add the points of the overall objectives held, and they hold all of them, so I don't even need to turn them over to show what they were worth. 1 is worth 10, 1 is worth 20, and 1 is worth 30, but they've got them all, so that's another 60 points that they win. The enemy commanders weren't on the table. For each enemy unit destroyed or removed from the table, there were 3 removed from the table. So you get 10 points each, so that's another 30. And then I don't normally bother with all the others. They're a bit silly, how lucky you were and so on. And they don't score very much. Now the attacker rolls 5 dice. Sorry, the defender rolls 5 dice. 9, 15, 21 points. And absolutely nothing else. They had no luck whatsoever. So it's a score of 94 to 21, which is a difference of more than 21, which indicates the victor will be writing the history book on this one. So there we go. I'll just give you a final overview of the battlefield. Just talk about it a little bit before we conclude. Well, it was very one-sided, as you saw, so not the most scintillating of games to spectate, but I hope it's shown you a little bit of the mechanics of the game, and also the colour and the kind of character of it as well. You know, as I say, you can really sort of go to town with it. It's like imagination set in modern Africa, really. I think that's the best way of describing it. And you know, plenty of scope for changes of atmosphere. You can have sort of sandy Northern Africa type conflicts. I've tended to go for more sort of Central African jungle type terrain. Plenty of different weaponry you can introduce. I mean, basically there's no limit on what you can, you know, add to the table. Any kind of tank you want, from old T-34s to more modern battle tanks. You can go to town on the scenery. I really enjoy the game. The trouble is, occasionally it can be a little bit one-sided, which makes it not so much fun for one of the two players. But you know, if you run campaigns and things like that, that's the time when it's worth bothering about all the other paraphernalia, like the political manoeuvring and so on, and you can really get into it, because this has just been one defeat in a long struggle. The People's Popular Front are going to fight to try and wrest control of the French colonial lackey government. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy it, despite the one-sidedness, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.